Yes, everyone, what's going on? My name is Stephen Howson. This is Full Time Devils, joined by Abdul, I'm joined by James, and I'm joined by Adam. All right? United have had, can we say, a pretty shocking start from the first 3 games. If we fail to pick up maximum points against Southampton, is that catastrophic? Adam, how important is it that we bounce back this weekend?
Yeah, it's been a mixed start, and that Crystal Palace game makes things look a whole lot worse than what the first 2 games were actually like. Because after the Wolves game, I felt like our performance against Wolves was better than the performance against Chelsea. And I kind of expected us to just slap Crystal Palace aside, and we didn't. And that's where that whole deflation and disappointment comes from. And I think that's something that we're going to have to expect from Manchester United this season, both because of the transfer policy in terms of getting rid of some of those players we deemed dead wood, and replacing them with youngsters is naturally going to bring inconsistency, but also not filling the squad with enough players and enough depth is obviously going to bring inconsistency as well, because we're going to be burning out some players throughout the season. So I think inconsistency is going to be the theme of the season for United. It may be a good season in terms of moulding the squad for the future, bringing in some players, getting some youth players ready for the first team, but we're going to have to get used to these inconsistencies, I think.
James?
A bit. Ollie's he needs time, basically. I think that's the message coming into the season. They had an okay pre-season, but no one really had any expectations. And I think, to be honest, at the start of the season, I would have taken this amount of points, although maybe from different games. I think if we lose to Chelsea, okay, fair enough. And if you replace that one with beating Crystal Palace, it's a very different thing going into the Southampton game. But no, I think it'll be under pressure from the Twitterati that attack all of us for not supporting their latest hashtag. But no, I don't think so. I think everyone's got to give him time.
I think the start we've had, it's like James said, if we lose the Chelsea game but we win the Palace game, then of course everyone looks at it in a different way. That Palace game, I think Gary Neville the other night said it, it's one of them where you're in transition as a side and you can see that. I think I've seen that on the pitch a lot. I think the patience wasn't there with the way we were attacking. Everything was a bit too rushed. But overall, I think you just got to give, even if it doesn't go well against Southampton, I think we're going to be basing our sort of decision with Ollie, whether, if it goes down to it, off our performances, because we've tried everything, we've tried experienced managers, and I think we're going to base it a lot on our performances more than purely the results. If there's progress on the way we're playing, if we're conceding less, I think that's something really important right now for us to see that progress in defence especially. But yeah, it won't look too great, obviously, if we don't pick up all 3 points at Southampton. I think that's vital, especially if we want to be in the top 4.
I kind of agree that it should be based on performances, but this isn't just the player performances, because the players can make or break a manager with their own individual performances, and sometimes the manager unfairly carries the can for poor player performances, which is not really something you can help. But when I look at the things that the manager's in charge of and the manager's responsible for, I saw big mistakes from Ollie and Mike in both the Wolves game that they should have dealt with, allowing the ball to come out to Neves on the edge of the box without someone marking him. They might have identified that and told someone to get there. We don't know, because Ollie's not the kind of manager to say, I told X to be marking him at all corners. He's not the kind of manager to say that in a press conference. He may well have said it and a player might not have done it. But the way we lined up against Crystal Palace, I thought was completely wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was wrong.
Yeah, I think Ollie's got... I think you have to... I think with Ollie, I'm looking at it 2 ways. I think no matter whether he's a success or not in terms of games won and trophies won, I think he'll be a success in terms of reshaping the squad, because he's identifying the right kind of players, and he's definitely sat there as a fan like we have and been pissed off with Smalling and Jones and been pissed off with the way Lukaku and Sanchez play and be unhappy with how slow Matic is in midfield, because he's got rid of those from the team, and that's what all of us as fans wanted to see, a progression towards a different style of football. The concern for me is whether he's good enough as a manager. I think that's a different story. Tactically, I think last season he showed in some big games he got it right. But again, as you just said, against Crystal Palace, he got the selection wrong. I think we spoke about it in the preview where we were suggesting Mata or someone should come in to try and break down those lines. And Jesse was clearly out of form, and we didn't change anything from the Wolves game, where I thought we did well in the Wolves game tactically, but the substitutions were wrong or whatever. And substitutions have been a little bit hit and miss as well. Like we brought on Greenwood for Jesse, which was fine. Jesse was having a bad game, but when we moved Jesse off the pitch, we lost that shape. So Mata should have came on earlier or at the same time as Greenwood, because then we would have had someone to pick out them runs that he was making. So
we went 4-4-2, didn't we, when he brought Greenwood?
It was annoying.
Righty then. So as we've seen, I mean, for me, this isn't anything new with United. This is something that I've seen my entire life with United. Anything happens at United and it's back page news. Anything happens and it's worthy of talk shows, phoning up and having a proper argument about it. The absolute circus that surrounds Manchester United has only been highlighted really with this penalty fiasco. You've had 2 players miss consecutive penalties. You can't tell me that that's the first time in the Premier League era that a club has got one penalty taker who missed, and then the next guy that took a penalty also missed it as well. And do you know what? I don't think if Gary Neville makes the fuss that he made on the Sunday after the Pogba penalty miss, Marcus Rashford misses that penalty. Because I think there was so much on that.
Pogba misses, Gary Neville doesn't, and everyone else doesn't make a big deal out of it. You got Bellend spray painting Pogba out, and that is fucking ridiculous, man.
Do you know what? I wouldn't put that past being right over that.
You know what's funny, yeah? You know what's funny? And you know David De Gea, yeah, for 5-6 years he's been our best player. He's been the best goalkeeper in the world, and I love David De Gea, and I still think he can go back to that form of him being the best goalkeeper in the world. But for the last 18 months, he's been shit. And we've all been saying, he's got credit in the bank and that. Now, I know Paul Pogba's not been here as long or put in the service that David De Gea has. But for the last 24 months, he's been our best player. And whenever he has a bad game, it's like he's the worst guy ever. Like, it's proper weird, man.
The difference...
Even like, we only sing his name when he gets racially abused. That shit's dumb to me, man. What the hell?
The difference that it is with Pogba and De Gea, I think, this is just my opinion on it, is you've never seen De Gea, even though De Gea's actions shown that he wanted to leave several times, you've never heard him come out and say it. Whereas there's a few times that you've heard Pogba basically be like, yeah, I'm up for going. And then that might be because of who their agents is. That could be a number of different factors, but I think that's one of them. I really do, because I think it's in United
when people
fans...
talk about it, they don't talk about that. They talk about, it's lazy, is this, is that, is this. It's just get a grip, man. I did this whole Pogba debate. People say Pogba loves to create a circus, but it's not him that creates the circus. It's like fans that create it. And even us discussing it again, like we did a podcast the other day. It was titled The Pogba Debate, and it's like, it's just, I feel sorry for the geezer's fucking head, man. It must be mental being Paul Pogba.
But he doesn't help the situation, does it? That's the issue. I think he could come out and say, yeah, I'm staying. And it puts everything to bed about that sort of stuff.
De Gea?
Yeah, you're right. But De Gea's never come out and said that he wants to leave, even though his actions have shown otherwise. I think that is the difference fundamentally.
But he still hasn't signed his deal. Now, I do think that a lot of that's to do with Alexis Sanchez. And now that he's pissed off to Milan, we'll probably see these deals getting agreed because he's no longer the highest paid player at the club.
I did hear something on De Gea's contract, which is that there's a bonus due on the 1st of September, and then he was going to sign after.
A bonus due?
Bonus due. There was a bonus due, a contractual bonus due on the 1st of September, and then he was likely to sign after that. So maybe there'll be some movement on it next week. Do you think that, I mean, you spoke about inconsistency at the start there. I think we've got the players to win virtually every single game. I mean, there's obviously some teams that we're going to come up against that we're just not a match for. You could hope for getting a result. But is this going to just be another one of those games where you turn up, someone pulls out a little bit of magic, and we win this? Or are we going to eventually start to see some systematic play from United? Because I don't see that when I look at us at the moment. I don't see a Manchester United archetype goal. Where I look at City, and I look at Liverpool, and even to a certain extent I look at Spurs, and I see a way of playing and a way of creating chances and a way of scoring goals that I just don't see at United. I think until we've got that, we're not going to find any consistency. James, what do you reckon?
I mean, look, I think Ollie's certainly trying to find the style that United are playing, but I think, as we saw towards the end of last season, the style that he wants to play is going to be very difficult when he didn't get the players he wanted in the summer. And I mean, I think I'm happy that the likes of Smalling and Sanchez are being shifted off, even though questions there about squad depth, but I think I agree with you there. To be honest with you, I think it will probably be like a scrappy goal, like a tapping or something like that, because Ollie's trying to build this sort of counter-attack inside, and the game against Chelsea in the FA Cup last season when Rashford scored, I think that was what Ollie wanted the typical United goal to be. But I know we're going back a bit here, but I want to talk about Pogba actually, because you were going on about that, and I remember Barney from Red News put a tweet about when United couldn't play in the FA Cup that season because we had to play in the Club World Cup in Japan, and there was a whole back page spread on famous celebrities that thought it was a stupid idea that United went to Brazil or whatever it was, and it had like Big Brother contestants on. And I think the main reason why Pogba's getting all this stick from right-wing tabloids like the Mail and the Sun is, I think it's because he's black, and I think if McTominay made these mistakes, if any other players saw it with Sterling, I think that's the main reason. And he's Muslim as well, so he ticks all their discrimination boxes.
Yeah, but there's that, and there's also United fans do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, whilst I believe, some United fans hold that view, not all of them do. And there's you see like African Manchester United fans a lot on Twitter and stuff like that. So then where even race may not even come into it, where they're just on it. I can see the disappointment in some of his performances because we expect a lot better, but I'm sure he expected a lot better around him as well. Forget Paul Pogba. In regards to your question about the style of play, I think the style, is more tactically fluid in terms of a formation. And I think the style is this high energy, high press, counter-attacking football. The problem we have is when we play at home and teams sit back with 2 banks of 4 or a bank of 5 or 2 banks of 5 even, is that we don't have a number 10 that's good enough to pick the holes. Paul Pogba is playing too deep, so he's not further up the pitch to be able to make that happen. Jesse Lingard's madly out of form and isn't providing at the moment. And you look around elsewhere in the team and we haven't got that creativity. Away from home, actually, I think against Southampton, we might be all right because they're going to have to come out a little bit more against us. And in fact, this is probably the game for Lingard. But because Lingard's had that bad game against Palace, Mata will probably start now as they should have started the other game the other way around, I think. So it's weird, but I think Southampton being at home may see us play better, and I think we'll probably see better performances from United on the road this season.
Adam, do you want to give us your starting 11?
David De Gea in goal.
That's a ballsy call, straight off the bat.
Ashley Young at left back. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire. McTominay doesn't deserve to start, but Fred isn't going to start, is he? Matic isn't going to start, is he? Like,
it's almost like we haven't got enough players in a certain area of the pitch.
I've got McTominay, Pogba, Fred. Greenwood, Rashford, and Mata, because Martial's possibly out, isn't he?
How's that lining up?
Diamond with the 2 up top.
Interesting. James, you want to give us your 11, please?
Yeah, I'm going to go for, obviously, De Gea in goal. Back 4 of Maguire, Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka and Young. Even I hate Ashley Young, but we've got no one else.
Don't hate him, man.
Pogba and McTominay as the 2 midfielders. Mata playing as the sort of attacking midfielder, and then James and Rashford as the 2 wingers, and Greenwood up top on his own.
I'm not sure he'll play Greenwood down the middle yet. I think if he brings him in, especially from the start, I think it'll be out wide and he'll probably go with Marcus, I would think, down the middle. What do you reckon, 11-wise?
Obviously, De Gea and goal, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire. There's no other option, Ashley Young. I think Delow's out for this game. So
Darmian exists, he's a thing.
Does Demi Mitchell still exist? Or is he
I think he's injured at the minute.
Is he? Got it, man. And then going into midfield, I don't know what the situation is with Fred. So I'll probably go McTominay, Pereira, Pogba. I thought we missed someone against Palace to bring the ball forward into sort of the final third with Paul Pogba, and it made Paul Pogba sort of drop deep, so we do need Pereira in there. going for the front three, I think he'd go Greenwood on the right, Rashford up front, James on the left. I think James looks a lot more comfortable on the left. I think obviously there's a lot of things he can iron out in his game, but I think in terms of what we have right now, I think that's how it's set out as the front three. I think Matt has just looked so poor off the bench in both games. Even the standard passes that I usually used to make, that are just easy for him, he was just misplacing everything.
He's just not a game-changing player. He's an excellent footballer.
I think he can be.
With good runners around him, I think he can still look great. But off the bench, I don't think you want someone off the bench to do something different or change the tempo. And that's not. I
still think he could do that, but it's just our side isn't that team. I think we're just not patient enough around him. If you stick him in a City side and they're chasing down a goal, I think he does well.
I think this game's really going to highlight the lack of depth, because for me, James should be that impact player off the bench. I think he can do that. He can definitely up the tempo. Without Greenwood being there as an option off the bench, I think we struggle. With no Sanchez, who for me probably would have gone as a false niner on the left wing. This highlights that, and Ollie needs to start, if he's going to use these youngsters to backfill the squad, which I think we'd all be happy to see. We'd all be happy to see the likes of Angel and Chong and Jimmy Garner given an opportunity. And Dylan Levitt, congratulations to Dylan on getting a call up to the national team. Do you know what? How often do you reckon people actually get their first cap before their debut for their club? That's kind of mad, isn't it?
I'm one step from a Wales caller.
But well done for him. Hopefully he does get a cap. Brandon Williams, a little bird's telling me he's going to be involved in the squad this weekend. Hopefully on the bench, but I don't know if he's just going to be travelling or not. So keep an eye out for that one. I think Brandon may be involved in this. I don't think he starts, although I certainly wouldn't have any hesitation giving him, if Ashley Young starts, give Brandon Williams the last 89 minutes, I reckon. I reckon that would probably work out quite well for us. I like him. I think he's got a great attitude. Laird was injured a couple of weeks ago, but he did say it was only going to be about 2 weeks, so the club had said. But that's then 2 weeks of recovery as well, isn't it? So I think both of them have got an opportunity to push for a first-team place. It's unfortunate for Laird that he's got Wan-Bissaka in front of him. But, the likes of Levitt, the likes of Garner especially, I think Garner's got a bit more X-factor about him than McTominay me. Now, I think if he was just a little bit bigger and a little bit older, you'd probably see him playing these games on a regular basis. But I'm hoping that's what the EFL Cup's for. I'm hoping that's what the Europa League gets utilised for. And Angel Gomez, talking about players that haven't signed nothing yet. Angel, I'm hoping they sign him up and they start giving him some regular football, because for me, that's a world-class potential footballer. And I think he only grows into that if he's given the opportunity to play. Right, James, you want to talk to us a little bit about Southampton, what we're expecting, who the threats?
They beat us in the cup final, didn't they, 50 years ago or whatever? And then we beat Liverpool the season after. But anyway, at Southampton, look, it's Hassan Hootel. I think he's actually done a pretty good job there last season. I remember we went there, and that was one of Mourinho's final games. That wasn't it, when I think we drew with them away, and Mark Hughes manager then. Anyway, I think there will be that
memory, bro.
Sacked him before we sacked Mourinho, Mark Hughes.
Yeah.
Remember when Steve said Mark Hughes should be United manager?
Yeah.
I remember Tony Marshall.
Don't let the truth get in the fucking way of a good story, yeah? Jesus. Like when I said Inter 2.0 with Mourinho, yeah. Watch the video, you fucking wet wipes.
You said we were going to win the treble in that, didn't you?
Yeah, go on, carry on.
Tony Marshall, I remember the game after the Liverpool game, in that nice black third top we had, was brilliant at St Mary's. I think in terms of the ground itself, I don't really think it's that good, to be honest. 20,000 cardboard box arena, like most of the ones in the Championship are these days. But I think their style is a bit inconsistent, a bit like ours is. I'm not sure Hassan Hootel is the right players at his disposal that he wants to play. But yeah, I mean, they're an okay side. I don't think they're going to be pushovers at all.
Adam, who we're looking out for? What to expect?
Well, we haven't come out. I think Che Adams is the new one for them. And I heard good things about him at lower league level, at Championship and stuff. So he could be a threat, because we haven't come up against him. We won't know what to expect, etc. But it's hard to see. Obviously, this season they've only won one league game. The one in the EFL Cup, I think, away against Fulham. So they've built up a little bit of confidence recently. They lost their first 2 games, lost against Liverpool at home. So really, it's a team that we should be going there to beat. But without Anthony Martial, who's had a decent time at Southampton in the past, without him, with them relying on Rashford and Greenwood and maybe Pogba for the goals, and we're going to need them to step up. The only benefit for me is that they're likely to leave gaps in. Against Liverpool, they played a 3-5-2. If they play that against us, then they'll leave holes in the wider areas for us to exploit. I didn't see what formation they played against Fulham, so I'm not sure if that's what they're playing every week. But they go with that. I'd fancy Greenwood and Rashford getting in between the lines.
Yeah, for most of the time that I've watched them, it is a 3-5-2 or a 1-1 sometimes up top, but it is a 3 at the back. He does like to try and knock it around a little bit, play it on the floor. Yeah. What are you expecting?
I think a 4-2-2-2 against Fulham. Just having a look now.
Oh yeah, they did play a 4-2-2. Redmond's sort of been played as both as a striker and as, I think in that game he played as an attacking mid, but they don't have a lot of goals in them.
No, they don't. I think it's more of a midfield battle. I thought it's a bit of a weird one because against Liverpool, I thought they were the better side in midfield for the first half. Southampton looked really good in that Liverpool game. I think Romeu, he does his job defensively really well. Very good player, very good ball winner. And then you got Højbjerg, who's obviously come from Bayern, good ball carrier in midfield. Ward-Prowse, I think he's a good player. And it's crazy how they could potentially have a better midfield than us on the day. Further up top, Che Adams looked good in the Championship, but I'm not too sure about him. Everything seems a bit too slow from his end, letting the shot go, everything, and he's sort of dropped him. I think he's brought Danny Ings in, who missed that big chance against Liverpool in the end, so he could be a danger in the box, but I wouldn't expect them to really trouble us further up the pitch. I think it's just about that midfield battle, and that's why I'd go Pereira, Pogba, McTominay in my opinion.
Interesting. Score prediction?
I think it'll be a tough game. I'll go 3-1 United.
James, give us your score prediction.
Adam, didn't you say that Paddy McNair was going to be a future United captain at one point?
Oh.
I said
Who said that?
I never said Paddy McNair was going to be captain. I said we would win the league with McNair and Blackett.
To be fair, after that performance away to Arsenal, I did think that. Playing them in a back 3 against Arsenal.
Aren't we allowed to get excited sometimes as football fans? Yeah. That's the whole point.
Think about it. If we've said, only now in the last 6 years, everything we say about football documented, but like, I've said some things that have proven to be bang on as
listen, the greatest manager of all time thought Phil Jones was going to be as good as Duncan Edwards. So everything I say should be taken with an absolute gallon of salt. If he can get some stuff monumentally wrong like that, then I'm allowed as well. So shut up. Right, give us your score prediction, Adam. In fact, did we get yours, James?
No. Right, I think United will win.
Decided to use that time to fucking have a go at me.
I know, innit? Which?
For boosting the youth.
Right. No, but it's funny if you go back on forums in like
definitely ask for a score prediction, not your fucking life story.
Right, 2-1 United.
Thank you, Adam.
Well, James once said that I'm fearing a score draw, but I'm going to try and put positivity out there and say 2-1 United.
I'm also feeling the 2-1 United. I don't know if we're all just off our heads or what. Let us know what you think in the comments.
We just lost against a team that's likely to get relegated. And
Roy Hodgson's been managing since 1973. What?
When my dad was like...
Mum was in school. Right, anyway, let us know what you think in the comments. Who do you think the danger man for Southampton is going to be? Are you confident? Are you expecting to see any sort of change of shape or sort of mentality from United and from Solskjaer's fellas? Do you think there's going to be any surprise call-ups? For me, Angel Gomez has to be at least on the bench for this one. We sort of Matic over there. I might have said this the other day, but I don't care. I'm going over old ground. When you looked at the bench and you say, what was he selected for? When he put Matic there,
against Palace especially,
what was he
didn't
thinking?
get that. Yeah.
Do you know what? We might need Matic in here. I didn't see it at all. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Who do you see on bench? Who your scorers are going to be? What your starting 11 is? Anything like that. And if you want to give James some shit just for being young, then do that as well. Right, nice one. See you in the next one.
It's last time, right? You've had it.
21 is coming.